My Lords, good evening. I refer to my interests and to 65 years of attendance at Stamford Bridge. Your Lordships should oppose this bill, root and branch. It's badly written, of course. It's a Christmas tree. But beyond this one very bad bill, there's a major problem facing us. Far too much regulation, with both major parties over the past 2 decades having succumbed to the impulse to interfere, to busybody, to regulate. Excess regulation kills economic growth, reduces wealth, suppresses human happiness. Fact-based academic studies from around the world confirm this. But in the UK, regulation has mushroomed. We can't roll out a decent nuclear programme. We've demolished the London Stock Exchange, with so few companies now opting to list there. Policy Exchange cites 25 destructive Human Rights Act impositions, one for each year since its adoption. And then there's the £100 million bat tunnel, which noble lords over the last few days have expressed bemusement as to how it came about. People ask why these happen. My lords, it's regulation and regulators. That's what goes wrong. My own recent book on economic growth estimates that reversing all of this would increase GDP per capita by some 13% in a decade. If most of us agree that there's too much regulation, how come regulation has proliferated so much? It's because those few who love regulation have become adept at pushing it through. First, find yourself a problem, in this case, parachute payments, alleged financial incompetence. It's odd to assert that, of course, about one of the world's most financially successful industries. But then, phase 1, cry that something must be done. And then create a further panic about diversity or equal pay, and get to phase 2, government must step in. Talk something about football blah, grassroots blah, women's football blah, stir up a general feeling that a regulator would be a damn fine thing. And so phase 3, there ought to be a regulator. So, a football regulator, what could possibly go wrong? The bill is actually an attack on the Premier League. It's driven by Willie Sutton's philosophy, that's where the money is. Are we so sure the Premier League will be unscathed? It pays £4 billion a year in tax, £1.6 billion to lower leagues and grassroots, with overseas TV deals a great export success, 90,000 Premier League jobs. Driving Britain's soft power all around the world, you can have a vivid chat about Arsenal or Liverpool in a taxi from Jakarta to Lagos. All of that raises people's estimation of this country around the world. 3 billion viewers in 900 million homes in 189 countries. Did this happen, my lords, by accidental circumstances? No. It was private enterprise that created this. Would it have happened if a regulator had been suppressing experimentation and initiative over the past 20 years? You know it wouldn't. Free markets need competition, fair exchange, no rent-seeking, no crony capitalism, private property rights. They wither when subjected to heavy-handed regulators. Do we really want to be known in future times as the Parliament that destroyed the global success of the Premier League? A compulsory governance code because, after all, we know best. Licences, imposition of removal orders, disqualifications for life on not proper owners. Look, I'm as anti-oligarch as anyone, but why dissuade a billionaire from dropping a substantial proportion of their wealth into the UK to invest in a football club? Which bureaucratic regulator would be able to distinguish between a good owner and a bad? Would Sheikh Mansour have been permitted to purchase Manchester City and turn it into one of the greatest teams of the modern era? Would Sir Alec Ferguson's famous hairdryer have been allowed by an equality, diversity, inclusion-loving regulator. My lords, what possibly can the E, equality of outcome, of EDI, mean in football? Football's a competition. Winning and losing is the whole point. You can't have equality of outcome. Or will the regulator require that all games end in a draw? Or perhaps if we're to have diversity, they'll require that 50% of teams be women. Difficult when there are 11 in the team, but I'm sure they can solve that too. But seriously, we know there will be regulatory creep. We've already heard this afternoon from a number of hungry, prowling peers eager to add their own obsession to the regulatory Christmas tree. We're told that this is a fan-led initiative, but do these busybodies, incidentally demanding that they be put on the board of this regulator, truly represent fans? Public First's poll asked which kind of regulators were needed. Least wanted of all was a cricket regulator. Second least wanted was a football regulator. Of course, with the artfulness of polling, when you offer a list of possible regulations, people say they're in favour of the most absurd things, which could eventually be added by the regulator. Force the whole club to go on mandatory DEI courses. Cap footballers' wages, all in favour. Equal pay for women footballers. Quotas for English players in Premiership teams. Quotas for English players in Premiership teams. Just a few of those would destroy the Premier League's success. No more global supremacy, no more soft power, far less tax revenues. A depressing future to contemplate. My lords, we must pull back from this overweening belief that we know best. We don't. Hayek's book, The Fatal Conceit, nailed that error. I recommend it. Lady Thatcher loved it. I'm sure noble lords will too. It's the free market that knows best. We should back off from so much regulation, and in particular from this attempt to plunder and distort that precious jewel in the economy's crown, the Premier League. I end by asking the Minister, has there been a request for a formal evaluation of this proposed regulator's possible damage, both to football and to the economy? If not, will you?